Welcome everybody. My name is Jonas, and I would like to make a short introduction about the project Back to Normal, Together for Health and Well-Being. I have prepared some short slides, so if you just wait for a bit, I can share them. Can you see the slides?
Yes.
Okay. Wait. The global COVID-19 pandemic that started at the end of 2019 claimed the lives of 6.4 million people. The losses of loved ones, isolation, uncertainty, feelings of loneliness, depression, inability to work or freely choose leisure activities were experienced by almost everyone during the quarantine. Even after the end of the worldwide lockdown, people continue to feel the despair, sorrow, stress, and other consequences it has caused. According to the recent Eurofund survey that was carried out last year, all EU countries were negatively affected by the pandemic. In spring 2021, there was an overall increase in negative feelings, anxiety, loneliness, and depression across most social groups. An increase in depressive feelings was recorded particularly among younger groups. 64% of young adults from ages 18 to up to 34 years are at risk of depression, while the highest increase in loneliness was recorded for senior citizens. This project is initiated by the partner organizations from EU countries, Lithuania, France, Netherlands, and Italy. We all share the common goal to improve health and well-being of the most vulnerable social groups suffering from the long-term consequences of COVID-19, including young adults and senior citizens. The adult education program is oriented towards developing lifestyle skills that will help learners to cope with psychological stress, build resilience in the face of the loss and distress, share negative experiences with peers, and receive psychological support. We plan to achieve this goal by developing an education program and a non-formal learning methodology focused on improving physical health and psychological well-being of people suffering from long-term negative consequences of the corona crisis. The adult education program is focused on developing lifetime skills that will help learners to cope with psychological stress, to build resilience in the face of loss and grief, to share negative experiences with their peers, and gain psychological support. In the adult education program, adults, educators, and adults themselves are being taught how to cope with loss and grief. The loss of a loved one during COVID-19 has been an unprecedented burden. Even to those who haven't experienced a direct loss due to COVID-19 may still feel grief and sorrow due to other forms of loss, ranging from time spent with loved ones to meaningful work or a sense of just the world. How to control your health, dietary habits, and exercise routine. Maintaining a healthy weight can be achieved and sustained by following a healthy diet and engaging in a physical activity. This can reduce the risk of chronic health problems and improve overall health, well-being, and quality of life. You don't have to put an excessive effort if you are trying to maintain healthy eating habits. Stress management through meditation, mindfulness, and positive thinking. Mindfulness, meditation, and positive thinking are clearly beneficial tools for you to regulate your personal emotional state. It's best to try them out for yourself. This will help you get rid of any negative emotions and feelings, as well as increase of self-confidence. Listen and support social interaction. Storytelling is an unconventional way to connect with your emotions, which can help establish a connection with others. It can enhance your thinking and assist you in coping with life's stressful factors. It is natural for human beings to be social creatures who crave connection. When we watch or listen to a story which we engage, our brains produce oxytocin, a hormone associated with empathy, which helps deepen relationships. Storytelling is a tool used in psychotherapy, but not in adult learning. We are promoting the use of storytelling techniques to share traumatic experiences, to create an opportunity for psychological peer support, to start the healing process, and to build self-efficiency in adult learners. We believe that it will also encourage participants to take an active part in improving their health and well-being, helping others, and making positive social impact. Thank you for your attention. If you were intrigued by other project aims and results, or you just want to know more about the subject, you can find all the necessary information on our website. The link for the website is provided on the slides. Thank you and good luck. And now I wanna forward the word to Anna from Netherlands on her presentation about adult educators' competencies to support people suffering from stress and grief.
Thank you. I will also share my slides then. Do it this way. So my name is Anna Fenko. I represent the Dutch company Fenon Consulting, and I'm one of the participants in this project. So today I will touch upon one of the goals of our project, and this is to increase psychological competences of adult educators in supporting people suffering from stress and grief. So what we all witnessed during these 2 long years of pandemic is that we all felt grief at certain points. And we do need more grief literacy, something to help us understand what's going on with our well-being during traumatic events and how to help others. So what is grief literacy? It is the knowledge that helps us facilitate understanding of grief and loss. It is also skills to enable us to support others and ourselves during this process. And it is also includes values of compassion and care. And those who suffer from the loss during Corona, and also people who are around them, including adult educators, social workers, mental health professionals, and all the people who help vulnerable groups, we all need this grief literacy, which includes understanding of how our brain responds to loss, how to cope with grief, and also it includes some kind of understanding what is not correct about our current views of, let's say, kind of pop psychology about grief. So we'll start from loss, and as we've heard already, it is enormous loss in terms of amount of people who died from Corona. And of course, when one person dies, it touches all the people who love this person, who care for this person. So it is an enormous loss that people feel. But it's not only, and of course, when the person dies in a kind of normal times, the family, the colleagues, everyone, the friends, they're able to gather and to say goodbye to this person, not during pandemic. During pandemic, people were dying in isolation. That made our grief, the grief of survivors, the grief of other people, even more strong. And it is not felt in a kind of socially accepted and culturally accepted ways. So we witnessed the funerals via Zoom, and sometimes it triggered reactions of stress and loss by itself. But of course, not only death is the loss. a lot of events that only happen once in your lifetime were also not we were not being able to experience them. Think about graduations, meeting your new grandchild, or supporting people during their sickness, or witnessing your child finishing school or kindergarten. This is all events that we do experience and cherish in the normal situation, but not during pandemic. Of course, there are other losses, like the loss of trust in your own government, in your own employers who might not do enough to protect you from the illness, and all that represents the big pile of losses that people are suffering during Corona. And the normal response to the loss is, of course, grief, which is usually what we feel and what we experience when we lose someone or something. So we all know the common responses to grief. First, it's disbelief and shock. It can include anxiety. It can include a high amount of stress, anger. Sometimes we feel really angry at people who died, even, not only at some virus that made it happen. It can, of course, include a prolonged period of sadness, and also some physical symptoms like loss of appetite, loss of sleep, headaches, etc., etc. So it's very well familiar to all of us what grief means. And I think it's also very familiar kind of a scheme that I'm showing now. It is quite old. We owe it to Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who during 1970s developed this theory of 5 stages of grief, which include first denial, then anger, then bargaining. Well, please, can you bring my loved one back? I will be a good girl, something like that. And then depression, and then finally acceptance. So what I can tell you is that these 5 stages of grief are very popular in pop psychology, but they kind of made a very bad service to our grief literacy, because it was the root of a lot of misconceptions about grief. So, for instance, the person who is in grief might just miss one of the stages and think, oh, I'm not doing it correctly because now I should be at stage 3, which is not true, because there are no correct way to experience grief and to mourn for someone who or something that you've lost. And the second misconception is that it kind of, these 5 stages kind of prescribe what to feel. And when we are not feeling it, we think, oh, something is wrong with me. I'm feeling not the correct sequence of the events, or it takes too long, or maybe it's not even a grief, maybe I'm depressed, or I'm just changing the stages, and first should be bargaining and then depression, and not the other way around. The truth is that there are no correct ways to feel grief. Everyone does it in its own time, in its own sequence, and it's not necessary even that all the stages are experienced. So what psychology now knows about grief is that this grief that was described by Kubler-Ross, it is usually from 6 to 12 months, and then people normally get back to normal. But of course, there are people who are suffering for more than a year, and it of course can happen, for instance, when the when someone very close to you dies, or people could be suffering from chronic depression. So we can try to help a person out of grief. But if a person is clinically depressed, that's probably not what we should have done. We should have just sent this person to the psychiatrist. Even some people feel improvement after the loss. And it can be indeed very understandable if the person who died was suffering for a long time from a very, very heavy disease. So then people who care for this person might even feel kind of relief after this person dies. So it is also kind of normal to feel that. And there is also something that is called resilience, and this is the experience of grief without any symptoms. And if you look at how these types of griefs are distributed, we can notice that so-called normal grief or common grief is only 12% of the population, and half of the population actually don't grieve according to the Kubler-Ross rules or stages. And of course, it's very interesting and very useful to look closer, to zoom into this resilient people. Who are these people who actually go through grief without any symptoms? And resilience is a relatively new construct. It has been described by American Psychological Association as the process of adapting very well in the face of trauma, tragedy, loss, and other significant stressful events. So it is adapting. So how is it possible that people who have this resilience can adapt to the loss without very negative consequences for their well-being? So there are a lot of different empirical studies now about resilience, and there are different competences that were kind of discovered in the resilient people, and this is one of the lists. It's not the only one, but I think it is important to look somehow at this list and to see to what extent actually we as adult educators or social workers, mental health professionals can help people to develop these competences of resilience. So it includes having goals of aspiration. So people who do have meaning in life, they don't suffer as much as other people who don't know what they want in life. Then, of course, it is a problem-solving ability. So and perseverance, self-efficacy that has been long known for actually increasing our success in all different areas, from teaching to studying to career. It also helps to survive the loss, because whenever we feel in control, we don't really suffer that much. Optimism, positive thinking, self-awareness, understanding your emotions, and emotional self-regulation, also flexibility and tolerance for uncertainty, empathy, of course, ability to understand others and to feel to understand their feelings, and also the ability to create social support and to be able to cooperate with others. So all these competences are actually not inborn. We can learn to do that, right? And it can be improved with education, with doing certain exercises. So there is some room here for our common efforts. And of course, we have to also look at the people on the other pole of this, and the other side of this continuum, the people who do suffer from chronic grief. And here is a small mnemonic rule to look for certain kind of signs of this chronic grief. So whenever people actually feel guilt, regret, isolation, whenever they experience multiple losses, not just one loss, whenever they also are in trouble financially, or they have very kind of codependent relationships with the person who died, or they have an individual history of trauma or mental health problems. Also, when the death of your loved one is sudden and the circumstances are terrible, and whenever the loved one is very close to the person, then it increases the risk of chronic grief or some kind of pathological grief. So we, as adult educators, as social workers, we really have to look for the signs of the chronic grief to be able to send these people to mental health professionals. So in general, how do we support people in grief? So first, we need indeed to look for the signs of pathological grief and refer our clients to mental health professionals. Then it is important to help people recognize their resilience. So remember those signs of resilient people. So are they optimistic? Do they know how to build relationships with others and social networks and use, and do they have empathy? Then, of course, it is very important to coach people to build some meaning in their lives, for instance, through volunteering. Of course, moving further to mental health professionals, behavioral therapy has shown good results in grief and helping people in grief, focusing on acceptance, mindfulness, and relaxations. Another thing that showed very good results is self-support groups. People who suffer from similar types of losses can help each other enormously by creating self-support groups. And this is also what we can encourage them to do. And of course, it is also important to keep in touch with your family and friends. And as adult educators, we should remind people that their family is a huge resource of support. Totally summing it up. So what do we need to remember when we are facing as mental health professionals, as social workers, as adult educators? We have to remember these 5 rules of helping grieving people. Listen, reach out, be practical, do not assume, and search for resources. So what does it all mean? So first of all, you have to be able to listen to whatever story the person is telling you. And in this project, we were trying to listen and to encourage people to talk about their losses during COVID. Then reach out. It is sometimes very scary to us to talk to people who are suffering from loss and grief, because of course we all start to feel their pain. But it is really important for grieving people that we at least demonstrate that we are here. We can survive their grief, because that means that they can also overcome it. Then, of course, being practical is very important, because people who suffer from acute grief and stress, they might need some practical help, doing just groceries or helping them to take care of their children or their other family members. So sometimes just practical help is very important. Then looking back at what I already discussed as kind of misconceptions, it is very important to remember that there are no right and wrong ways to feel the grief. So we have to encourage people to express their grief and loss in any way they wanted to do. Yeah, of course, without like hurting others, of course. And then it is important to search for resources when you feel that a mental health professional is needed. And here is another mnemonic rule that is abbreviation of the things to be to remember about supporting grieving people. So first is C, cultivate and communicate compassion. Then it's A, assess risk factors and needs. R, refer to mental health professionals when appropriate. And E, ensure continuity of care over time. So this is more or less in a nutshell what we all need to remember about the health of grieving person. And thank you very much. I hope it is helpful, and now I'll stop sharing.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Jaunius, for your presentations. Do you have any questions from dear partners, participants, about anything that has been presented recently, or everything is okay? If all good, we're going to continue with storytelling methodology in non-formal learning, non-formal education, and we'll have a practical example. So I'm going to share with you some methodologies from the non-formal sector, mainly from the previous and ongoing Erasmus Plus projects that we are running in the last 15 years around Europe, the Middle East, and other neighboring countries. So what Anna was telling you, very important word concept, that when we are addressing non-formal education, we're talking about competencies, and competencies, they consist of knowledge, skills, and attitudes. One of the most difficult things for trainers, adult educators and trainers are to address people's behaviors, yes, inclinations, because when we are working with adults and especially elderly people, they have this preset social representations that are anchored in their life and have been proven in their subjectivity, and it's very difficult to change it, yes, in comparison with skills when you can teach someone to use a specific thing, or you can share some specific knowledge. So it stays one of the key factors what to address, behaviors and attitudes. The different methodologies, they can be very simple when we are talking about storytelling, starting with different settings. That can be a very simple classroom when 15, 30 people, they sit in a circle and they just improvise and share their stories. Can be more complex when people, participants of the project or seminar or training course, they bring in one object, the personal object. It could be a candy, it could be a sculpture, it could be a scarf, a piece of clothes, whatever they want, and they try to link the object with a specific story, what it was important. I remember people were bringing things from a tiny candy to the saxophone, yes, in the classroom. So it was very, very different. And sometimes people were even performing. Settings could be way more complex when people they organize this kind of storytelling events outdoors in the specific setting. It could be in the mountainous region. And before this, people are walking for 1 or 2 days. So they combine the storytelling methods and settings with some previous things, like when people need to walk and reach a specific destination. It could be a specific place of force, a spiritual place, and so on. Sometimes people also going through very stressful situations, yes, when they're addressing the setting of grief. So their situations can be very difficult. I'm going to share with you some of the methodologies that we have prepared and that we have. Can you see the screen well with us? Yes. So the methodology of storyline, one of the most simple ones. May you confirm that you see the screen?
You're not sharing the slides.
Okay, so I'm going to share it now. Okay. Can you see it now?
Still no both.
Okay, it's done. Now you can see it. Yes, perfect. So one of the most simple methodologies that we're going to start with is the methodology of the storyline, and we have prepared in the template and the framework that can be used by adult educators in a professional setting, but also can be used in people's everyday life to organize some specific sessions among friends, partners, group of invited people into their house. So first of all, the idea is to introduce few types of storylines, what kind of approaches can exist, to explain how story writing can be used in non-formal education. Yes, it can be very complex when we are working on multimedia piece, so we're talking about digital storytelling, or very simple when we just have to do an exercise that we will follow in the minutes to come. The idea also, the objective is to train skills in writing short news story, in short article, yes, and they're pretty detailed in terms of what is expected from people. So the idea also to address various types of groups. You can work with a very tiny group of 5, 15 people or more people, and the duration also varies according to the number of the participants you have in your group, and most importantly, the ability and willingness to express themselves, because not all the participants in some specific settings are okay to express themselves, because they might lack of communication skills, competencies. They might not feel very comfortable to talk to people that they don't know. Really depends on the setting. What kind of materials you can use? You can use PowerPoint presentations, more advanced Prezi or printed materials when you deliver different hangouts. Yeah, so the idea is to address one of the things that we can call a news story. Yes, so the most newsworthy information in a classical way addresses the questions who is doing what, when, where, why, and how. Yeah, so these 5 W's, then we cover important details of the story and other general information and background info. So by answering 5 W questions, people can easily describe a news story. So it is called an inverted pyramid. A very frequent thing that we can see in the media. Another more complex thing is a feature story that is different from straight news in several ways. First of all, because there is an absence of straight news lead. Yes, so it can start from a very different point. And first paragraph of a feature often relates to intriguing moment of event. Very often when we think about it, we can think about some stand-up comedians, some specific settings where artists are addressing public. Yes, and many artists, they are working in a non-formal setting with the so-called clients. Yes, so it's psychology related things. Yes, so feature paragraphs tend to be longer than those of the news stories. Yes, more descriptive, so they're using more adjectives and smoother transitions between them. Yes, it really depends on the quality and well, let's say intellectual capacities and intellectual background of the person who is a presenter. Yes, feature writers also use the active verb construction and concrete explanation of straight news. But sometimes they put more personality, yes, in their purpose. So they really try to use the particular features of the personalities that can be very attractive. So one of the examples, it can be Freytag pyramid, is a 5-part model, also referred as dramatic arc. So there is exposition, rise in action, climax, fail in action, and the denouement. It's a French story. So there is one of the artistic approaches. Another version of Freytag pyramid is called the story arc that you can see here. Yes, we have start, we have action, tension, growth. Very often you have these kind of approaches in classical literature. You have climatic event or maximum confusion. Yes, when in some movies, or nowadays when we're talking about storytelling, we also can see it in a bigger way in so-called series of different kinds, sagas that you can find on Netflix or other, produced by other companies. It's very similar to storytelling, which is a digital storytelling and multimedia video pieces. Then we have a revealing of plot, resolution of confusion, and the end. Yes, so it's also called Aristotelian dramatic arc. So in this case, people really rely on the personality. what we would like to also share with professionals and partners later, different sources where people can find more information about this from different sources, from Wikipedia, from different websites, and also learn about semantics and different approaches, which are becoming more and more complex. All these materials will be shared. Another thing is the digital story methods, which is way more complex, that we are using in our every day's work with different target groups, with young people, adult clients, and also elderly people. So the idea is teach participants and clients one of the basic things how to create a digital story, if we try to define it, thanks to Daniel Meadows. So digital stories are short, personal, multimedia tales told from the heart. Yes, so people really put more emotions there. It can be created by some specific software, or it can be just filmed and presented. What people need to do, so in order to produce a good digital story, people need to decide on the stories they want to tell. Yeah, it's one of the most important things. Gather all needed materials. So first of all, it can be a good camera, it can be a good microphone, but also begin writing a script, or what we call a storyboard. Yeah, storyboard follows the script. It is actually the framing what would be filmed if you are talking about filming or creating multimedia piece on thanks to the software. You really need to describe the setting, when it's going to be done, which setting you are going to use, what kind of clothes, for example, people are going to wear, and you basically write different squares one by one and write, this is going to be, this setting will be filmed during 2 seconds, another setting will be filmed by 4 seconds, there will be 3 people on the stage. So people are drawing like this when they start filming. It means that the trainer or the facilitator of the group, he needs to be very precise what is following what, and people are creating a multimedia piece which can last from 30 seconds up to several minutes. And when the storyboard is not very precise, people get confused, so they don't know what to do, so the group disintegrates, people get lost. But when the storyboard is properly created in advance, people really know who is doing what. Some people are responsible for the sound recording, some people are responsible for filming, some people are responsible for the decoration, other people are responsible for the preparation of the setting, some people are protagonists and actors. So everyone is occupied by some specific tasks. Yes. Another thing, people can record their own voice, or people can record voice over. Nowadays, we have more and more artificial intelligence features where you can really choose male voice over with specific accent, or female voice over, yes, and you just put the text and the machine really records it, yes, with or you can use your own. Add music, yes, if you find something copyright free things, you are welcome to use it, or you record your own music. When we are working on this short stories with our participants, that these trainings, they last from 3 days up to 10 days, participants record their own music. So we have a group of people who sit with drums and guitar, they write their own lyrics. It's not always easy, because musicians and artists, they very often argue about things. Yes, they say, my music is better, we need to focus on this, on that, on the setting. So we create a bonfire in the forest and we record it separately, and after we put it together with the image. And one of the most difficult things in digital storytelling is to edit the story properly. Yes, you can use different kind of software with very simple things that you can find online, or Adobe Premiere which is a pretty advanced software to edit things. After, you can also use color corrections and other things. Yeah, so also would like to share some basic tools how to organize your ideas. Yes, very simple one and widely used nowadays is a Padlet. So it allows you to create interactive notes for multiple purposes. Yes, it's widely used during the pandemic in schools, businesses, tutoring as well. And Twitla was a real-time online whiteboard collaboration tool for modern classroom. So also it is widely used in schools and in some businesses. Then you have Bubble. So it's a mind map. So it's a graphical representation of ideas and concepts. A very interesting thing like this. It's when it's visual, people really understand, yes, this visual thinking tool. And it allows them to easier structure the information. Yes, because many people, especially when we have a long lasting training courses, they just lose, let's say, the red line. Yes, what follows what. Yes, they become distracted, bored, so on. But this tool uses so easily. It's the idea for educators, students, and business owners. Yeah, so it's helps with lesson plan and concepts. And Lino, virtual interactive sticky note board. There are more things as well. Go Prezi, which follows. It's pretty similar to PowerPoint, and so on. Here we have different online resources for digital story creation. No, starting from Microsoft Suite, LibreOffice, depends on the licenses, and so on. But I invite you, so we have more here. Canva, of course, among several. So it's a free online graphic editor to create almost any kind of presentations. And nowadays, when you see a lot of visuals, especially in the Erasmus Plus, the majority of them they are done in Canva. Well, Storybird, this is a platform for writers, readers, and artists, different ages. So it allows you to create visual stories in a few seconds, yes, and put your simple ideas. My idea is to not to bother you a lot with different approaches, but the idea is to involve you in a practical exercise where you can create your own story, a very basic thing. Yes? So you don't need to too much. It's a very basic thing to test how it works. And we're going back to the 5W. So you can see most newsworthy info. So the idea is that each of you can take a pen, pencil. If you don't have it next to you, don't worry. You just can, on your computer, you can open Word document and write a story, any story. If you can write it about this webinar. You can write a story about this project, about something what is going on, preferably something happy and joyful and gay in the world. So answering the 5 questions: who, what, when, where, and how. If you want, you can add more things, like some important details, but your story shouldn't be very long. Yes, so you can fix to a few sentences up to a few paragraphs maximum by describing your story. And please do it. And after, we can present it on a voluntary basis. So if you don't feel like to present, don't do it. But please try to present. And we will take for this some, let's say, 5 minutes, 7 minutes when you are ready. So we have time. We're not a very big group. And I would kindly ask a few volunteers to share your stories with others. Yeah. So once again, I repeat, you have to answer the questions: who, what, when, where, why, and how. And you choose the topic of your story. Well, the screen is shared, so you can have it. And I'm here to answer your questions in case you are not in trouble, but you are perplexed about what you would like to talk about. Thank you very much. And I'm here. How is it going? Is anyone ready? Or not yet? Let's take a few more minutes.
Turns out it's not that easy exercise after all. Because somehow in one sentence I can formulate who, what, when, and where. But it takes me like, yeah, I stop at why and how, and it requires like a long list of of things.
Can be from a few paragraphs up to a PhD.
Yeah, exactly. So why I'm still not able to formulate.
Do we have any volunteers to start like in 2 minutes? Feel free to start for those who really want. And so I think I keep the slide here like this. We can see each other on the side, yes? Or you want me to stop sharing like this? We can have a better screen view. So who is ready? Who would like to start? Any volunteers, if you don't have to, but it would be interesting to see what kind of story you have created.
I can
share.
start.
No, no one wants. Yes,
I
go
can do
ahead,
that.
please. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
but as I said already, it's difficult to separate who, when, and where. So it all comes in one sentence. Last summer, I was approached by the lady from the municipality of Beverwijk, where I live. And I was asked to translate some information to Ukrainian. I said, sorry, but I do not speak Ukrainian, but I can still translate everything into Russian. No, it would be a terrible idea, said the lady. But a week later, she called back and said, well, yes, we discovered that our clients do speak Russian, so please come over and help us out. And so it happened that a large group of Ukrainian displaced people came to live in our municipality. And since then, I was involved in helping them. And why? Well, because of the war. I don't want to talk at length about this, but what were we doing? We were trying for the whole year, and I'm still trying to help this group of people to adapt to the new country where they start living and to deal with the stress, loss, and trauma, and how, among other things, by using storytelling methodology. And that's my short story.
Thank you very much, Anna. Who would like to share another story? No more volunteers? Maybe.
I mean, I could. I
Try.
made a story on different levels. So I used the example that you have provided just to try to write a sentence for the who, what, when, where, and why and how. So I came up with a story about my dog, what he has done today. Today my dog, while he was alone in the yard, ate my cat's food. That would be the basics of the story. And should I go forward with the story, or on this level?
Yes,
okay.
Yes, please.
Okay, so today when I woke up in the morning, I was too lazy to take my dog out, so I just let him out to the yard. And I have forgotten that yesterday I have left my cat's food and I didn't feed my dog. Well, normally my dog isn't that acrobatic, but my dog is really motivated by the food. So he came up to the panel and he jumped on the panel and ate my cat's food. Well, it happened in my yard and I couldn't see it. If my dog knew that I would be watching, he wouldn't have done it. But I think the reason why he did it is just basically because he was really hungry. And how has he done it? I really don't know, because he is too fat to get up there by himself.
Thank you very much. Was it difficult to do it?
I mean, if you put the story in, first you write a sentence of what you want to speak about in a general way to answer the questions. It falls under the on other levels. It's more easier to expand the story on the matter. It's helpful, yeah.
Thank you. Any other participants who would like to share their story? No more volunteers? Okay, then we're going to talk about the reflection. And also we will do a certain reflection of, let's say, this exercise. As you know, one of the most important features in non-formal education is to reflect on personal learning. What we can talk about personal learning styles, to be more precise, yes. In this case, there are different methods can be used. In, let's say, classical Erasmus Plus training courses, in the beginning of the training course, the facilitators and trainers, we are talking first of all about various competences that participants, wherever they are, they can be clients, they can be also trainers and facilitators, will be able, could gain during different sessions. So we can talk about multiculturality, we can talk about self-expression in a multicultural environment when we have an international event. And also we are talking about different learning styles. Yes, for example, for some people, it's very easy to work in a group. And some people don't like to do this. We also deliver, for example, we deliver different notebooks where people can take notes after each of the activities, or even during different activities where they note what they have learned, where they're taking notes, and after they use these notes during the reflection. For them, it's very helpful after the training course to make a certain synthesis of what they have learned. Another possibility, we organize almost every day different reflection groups where people can reflect in multinational groups, in national groups, using various methods. Nowadays, if you travel, or even if you go often to different bookstores, you can find, especially in the last few years, a lot of different cards, card decks that help the reflection. Yes, so these could be cards with different questions. They can be very personal, they can be very professional. Another deck of cards, they can be only visual, yes, something like Dixit, but they can be way more focused on some specific topics, whatever it is. It could be cuisine, it could be travel, it could be nature, it could be animals, or different corners of the planet, and so on. Sometimes we, for the reflection, we create our own methods with the help of Instagram and especially the Facebook. We are gathering publications by other people with quotes, yes, and we put these quotes printed on A4 sheets around the classroom or around the setting. It can be outdoor as well, where the participants, the clients are gathered, and they are able to walk around, mingle with other participants, and choose one or a few pictures or quotes. And after, in the circle, voluntarily, they show this quote or show this picture, and they reflect on what they have learned during the day, during the workshop, or during a specific session. Yes, so it helps on the one hand to visualize what they're thinking. Or another more complex thing, we provide markers, crayons, pencils, and participants personally or in a group, they can actually draw something and present their drawing about the personal and professional learning in the specific thing. Sometimes we also deliver different kind of materials, papers, scissors, scotch tapes, metal pictures, colorful papers, where participants can build or create something, a specific structure. Yes, so it's more creative and artistic, and share the feelings or the learning achievements after a specific session. So reflection can be very, very different in terms of form, and they also can be group ones where participants are talking only in between themselves, but they can also be moderated by the facilitator when participants present in a circle or in any other different way the outcomes of the learning. So the importance of the reflection is highlighted in this way. So that's about from our side. I had a question in the chat about different voiceover program software, so that we were using in our side projects, and even for the creation of some video materials of this project. So me personally, I was using voice booking. And a paid version. It was not very expensive, but this one was pretty useful for me. So you can choose male, female, and different accents. But otherwise, there are, of course, many other specific softwares that you can find online. So it can be Revoicer, or it can be in video, and so on. So for me, yes, as I said, I had a subscription for the voice booking. So it's kind of a voiceover generator, but you can find more. And yeah, The majority of them, they are very similar. Of course, when you have a paid version, it allows you to find more specific accents. Yes, if people are really struggling and searching for some specific projects, a real voiceover, not artificially generated, you have different platforms like Fiverr, where you can find freelancers from all around the world. And if, for example, you need a voiceover with Australian, for example, accent, here you can find people in Australia and they will be eager to help you, or any other languages, so it is fine as well. Yeah, so this is from our side. Thank you very much, and we are going to share these materials with you and also publish these materials, so you are free to use. Don't forget that we have different links on different sources in the annexes, and of course feel free to update, because our collected knowledge is always more important than knowledge of a personal thing. Later, when we meet one of the days, we can try something like digital storytelling methods that require, let's say, more time and more creativity. We can create a small piece about the project that we are all in. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Otherwise, I pass a microphone to another presenters, and I'll come back to you to finalize this meeting. Thank you very much. I'm just trying to close the demonstration. Yeah, that's it. So, any questions? No? Who would like to continue, please? Or if you still have some stories, feel free to present your stories that were created. Carlo, would you like to continue?
Talk about me?
If you,
Yes, thank you, Paul. Just only talking about the website of us. This is our website made by partners about continuing what Paul was telling us about the stories and people which was affected by COVID and how they managed the way to cope with COVID and the way to use resilience as a main way for them to solve. So on the website is possible to see different sections. So the first one is how to go through loss and grief. There were sections divided by partners in order to share the duties, and second is how to take control over your health. So how it was possible to maintain a healthy behavior and a healthy diet combined with physical activities. Well, first of all. And the third section is how is able to manage stress. In this case, not the eustress, but the distress, using meditation, mindfulness, positive thinkings as methodologies to cope with stress and to fight stress. And then the last section, listen and give support, social communication as a way to give support, especially during distance working or during lockdown. Well, just only in the third section, you can read some stories of stress and resilience during COVID. The stories that were taken, at least one per country. So stories of Annelies from the Netherlands, Stefano from Italy, Danute, and Anne from France. So just only if you want to read a story of someone else who passed through COVID experience, and of course the stories of resilience. Then some movies, and why this is useful to use the storytelling in order to say to someone else how to cope with COVID and how to use resilience as a way for managing this stress. Because we think that stories are important for people, and they're important for the ones who wants to know how others did the same. So the first idea is to explain how the process of creating and sharing narratives is a good tool for building resiliency. And then the second, the narrative sources enable grieving people to know the value of their perspective. And then the third section is thinking that experience is everything, while recognizing the possibility of restoring the fabric of a normal life is something useful, not only for the people who were affected by COVID, but it is interesting and useful for everyone, especially for the ones that were not touched by the pandemic. So just entering the first sections, for example, how to go through loss and grief, it is possible to see that inside the first section, we can see mostly videos. As mostly videos, you can see in all the other sections of the websites, of our website, where the first is to describe the types of loss, and then some videos talking about how to ensure that people can be better equipped to support the strength and support them together with others in order to fight against losses. And you can see just only the only screenshot is the same, but of course the model is different and the content is different. Thus, the first section is to explain the different kind of losses and what really is a grief. So, in order to explain everybody where we have to start when we talk about losses, and so just only one way to identify the problem and the problems that we have talking about losses, maybe not only losses of people, of course, we are not talking exactly about losses of the dear ones, but example, the loss of stability, the loss of the physical security, and so on. The second item is how to take control over the health. So sometimes the behaviors, they are useful in order to give more stability to lives affected by the pandemic and affected by COVID. But we used COVID in the past because the project was born during COVID time, but we can say that we can enlarge to all the kind of sicknesses and illnesses that affect our health. So the control over your health, eating habits, and exercise routine is just to talk about why it is so important to have a healthy diet. So why it is better to have physical activity, especially for elderly people. It's possible to see with the subtitles in different languages. And then some other small videos about the ways to do exercises. And then another video focusing about how to join my zoo, something nice and interesting in order to explain how habits can affect and can improve our resiliency, or maybe can decrease our resiliency and our way to resist to the pandemic or to resist to sicknesses. So they're important, especially when we eat. It sounds a little bit strange talking about the way to eat and the way to behave during COVID time, but a better way to behave is something useful for us and for people affected with COVID. The third section is coping using meditation. So one way not only to give physical health, but even mental health. So coping through, in this case, distress in English. It's better to say distress because in all languages we use stress and we use stress to say that, but in English there are two words. Eustress, it is a positive stress, but we are talking about distress. Where mindfulness, meditation, and positive thinking, they can be helpful to have a mental health. Example, forest therapy. It is one way to use the nature as a way, as a tool, as a natural tool in order to cope with stress, and positive thinking like a kind of method or methodology that can be useful for gaining successfully the problem of sickness, and mindfulness as a global way to have better resilience and to use resilience in our life when we want to manage some questions at the end that they can help us to reflect or to have mind about our actual conditions. Do you feel often stressed, or are you trying meditation forms in daily life? Or do you feel physical pain after a stressful situation? Or are you prepared to positive thinking? And do you know methods how to deal with stressful situation? If you answer yes to the first three questions, probably you need trying meditation in your daily life, or you need probably start thinking about what is mindfulness and what is better to do in order to cope with stress and in order to find one way to solve the the critical situations, because we started talking about COVID and the pandemic, but we know that after COVID and after the pandemic, always there are ways for having in front of us in our daily life stressful situations or critical situations. The last action provided by us is listen and give support. So the first is to identify the problem. The second is to cope with stress. The third is having some ways to use meditation. And the last section, last but not least, is how it's possible to give support, especially through social communication, and especially for people that cannot be in touch directly with us because they are far, because of remote connection, because of the lockdown, in case of lockdown. So the challenges are the needs of having two target groups suffering from the consequences of COVID-19. We found young adults and senior citizens, and these target groups, they suffered about physical restrictions or restrictions to social activities given by the lockdown. This is to say social communication importance, and then here too it's possible to find stories about how to solve the problem or how to cope with the problem of social isolation and the lockdown that affected our life. So the first is communication, as of course sharing stories, and how to build emotional awareness with some exercises about emotional awareness, and one way to reflect around our way to solve or to cope. Some questions, and at the end, references, some ideas more useful in order to decoding emotion by analyzing speech, body and face, so some ways to understand where we are going, and then references useful for the ones who wants to go deeper inside as the subject or of how to cope with stressful situation and with the social isolation and lockdown. Well, this is the main of the website. Of course, it's possible to see something more and something else, but what I wanted to focus about is that we decided to have mostly videos and not just only text. Text can be boring while talking about videos, and seeing other stories of resilience can be useful for all people entering in touch with this kind of subject and entering in touch with other people's stories of persons which have been affected by COVID. Thank you for your attention. Thank you, Paul. And from my side, everything is done.
Thank you very much, Carlo. Thank you very much, the participants, for your nice and interesting presentations. Just to wrap up everything and finalize, really appreciated that you have prepared for this webinar and showcased the importance of the topic after Corona and how to address the well-being of the general public or people who are in the difficulty. And thanks to the created results by this project, participants, frontliners, adult educators, even youth workers, the people who work with elderly people, they can be able and get instruments, tools to create and run some sessions addressing the well-being of the target groups. Yes, so in a way it can be even a holistic approach, so they can address different layers of the problem and problems people are facing, according to the context and national context, and as well they can learn about different perspectives from different countries and different stories from different countries, which might vary, of course. Yeah, so it's a helpful tool that can, on the one hand, boost the competencies of adult educators and frontliners, and on the other hand, help the well-being, improve the well-being of the participants. If you have any questions regarding the webinar, feel free to write to us. In particular, if you are thinking about an invitation that all of you have received, there is an English version where you have an email by Mitra, but also each national version of the invitation has a specific email of a partner organization on a national level. Yes, so you can write directly to them, and we will be more than happy to share with you more information, videos, or just some consultancy regarding the topic of this project, but also can share some other interesting and relevant tools for your personal and professional life. That's from our side. And if you have any kind of comments or feedback to share with us, please let me know. If you don't have anything, I just remind you that this webinar has been recorded and it will be published. So feel free to rewatch it and use it for your purposes.